Welcome, everyone. It is that time, so we will get started. As always, I want to thank everyone for attending our webinar this month. We're talking about unlocking the power of the NAPT Customer Portal. A few housekeeping items. As always, this webinar will be recorded and will be posted to our website. Additionally, if underneath the More button, if you'd like to have this transcribed in different languages, it will do that for you as well. So if you're looking for it in Spanish or French, you have that option as well. So with that said, we will go ahead and dive right in. There's not a lot of slides today. It's a lot of presentation of the actual portal. So let's talk about real quick introductions. So my name is Richard Brynteson. I'm the Managing Director at NAPT. If you're not familiar with NAPT, we are a nonprofit organization that helps organizations do their proficiency testing needs. We have, if you count up all the experts we have, over 100 years of experience, and we always like to tell people we have a full-time dedicated staff here to help you out. We've got the best tools, the reports, and the most kits, so hopefully that is what you find with NAPT as well. So agenda, we're going to really talk about three things. We're going to keep it pretty simple. We're going to talk about the customer portal. We're going to kind of go through it. We're going to talk about some very specific membership benefits that you may or may not realize that you can take advantage of. And then we're going to look at what is next inside of the portal and what the future looks like. So we're going to highlight a handful of things, but we're going to talk about three really large items that we want to talk about. First, we're going to talk about the risk management tool. Second, the ability to suggest kits for development. And the last one is about managing corrective actions. So with that said, as promised, we're going to dive right into a demonstration of the portal and walk our way through it. As I see random things, I'm probably just going to call them out so that you're aware of them. So I'm going to go ahead and log in here. This is the familiar splash screen as you log in. We've had people say they'd like to not see the splash screen, so you can turn this off now if you really don't want to see it, but we think it's pretty handy actually. In this case, we're going to start with the risk analysis. We've talked a little bit about this tool previously, kind of teased it, but never really showed what you can do in the risk management tool. So we're going to go ahead and take a few moments today and really describe what this tool does and why your organization might be interested in using this. Risk is a very large part of your accreditation process. It's kind of the industry buzzword, but it has important roles to be able to describe and understand and evaluate your own risk within your organization. So when you come into the customer portal, this tool is free for any organization that uses NAPT tools. You do not need to be a member or not for this. When you log in the very first time, what we're going to do is we're going to populate these 10 different categories, and by default we're going to give each item a score of 5 and allow you to manage what you wanted to do with that. The first thing you can do in the lower left corner is this view settings, and here you can change the percentage weight of the scores. So by default, everything has 10%, but every organization is different and you might view different things. So you might think, right, audit technical findings is a much more important item within your organization. So you might change that weight, right, to 15, and you'll see down here, you'll have that running total. So can't be more than that, so we're going to go ahead and back that down to 5. But the idea here is you as an organization, the first time you go into it, if you want to make those changes, you can. You don't need to. You can leave everything exactly as is for that. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save here. And once we've done that, on the main screen, we have the 10 different categories. So I'll just start with the first one so you can kind of see how this process works. So our first one is around organizational context. So what's unique to your organization, goals, culture, market demand, all those kind of things. So when I click on Update Details, I can now select, based on my own risk analysis, the different settings that I think is, or different category based on my organization. So in this case, right, we changed it to high risk for the demonstration. But maybe I want to come in here and I'll say, it's, actually a low to moderate risk, or a value of 6 in this case. And I have the ability here to swap and jump between notes and these details. So I could come in here and write a detailed list. These are my detailed notes about organizational context, for example. We are fantastic and doing great, right? And that just allows me to put some notes and some context within it. As soon as I hit save, we see that in that case, if you remember correctly, our score jumped from 1 to 6, our weighted score. And at the end of the day, based on the percentages, your total score you can get inside of any kind of assessment is a 10. 1 being the worst, 10 being perfect. Well, not perfect, but you kind of get what I'm getting at. Once you've gone through and you've done this process, you can click the review and submit. And what you're doing here is you're taking a snapshot in time of how your organizational's risk is at this time. So in this case, on the 21st of May, I'm saying these are my organizational scores and weighted scores. And you'll notice there's a little checkbox here, meaning I have notes in every single one of them, so that when I hit save here, it's going to go ahead and save all the notes I have put in so far and that score, and kind of give me a time capsule. So if I come back to this in 6 months or 12 months, I can start from that point, but I can move up and down based on how we've done in that last 6 to 12 month time range. And you could do this as often as your organization wants. If you wanted to do risk analysis, once a month, you could do that, and you could use this tool. So I'm going to hit save, and what it's going to ask is, it's going to say, would you like to write a summary of how your findings for this analysis that we're going to tie to this kind of time capsule? I'm going to go ahead and say yes in this case. And what is kind of neat is I can use the power of AI to kind of be a jumping off point. So I'm going to go ahead and click that, and what's going to happen under the hood is it's going to look at all of the notes and all the scores and everything I've entered into the system and give me a analysis of based on the information that's there. So it's gone ahead and created these 5 paragraphs, giving me my weighted score, and I could edit it, right? These are additional notes, or maybe I didn't really like how it phrased something, so I could take out sentences or whatever the case might be. But at the end of the day, I can write that summary for that kind of moment. I'm going to hit save, and now we've saved our risk assessment at this time. So when I click on my view saved results, here we can see the one from today. I've got that weighted score. And what you can see here is you have the ability to do this over time. So in this case, right, we've done a handful of them. You can kind of see that process as it's gone along. So that allows you to kind of visually see that. And if I wanted to, I can click on the details, and here is that report. So you might want to, right, as part of your accreditation process, you might need to, produce this report, give it to your assessor or whatnot. So you have the ability to export these to PDF. So it's a really neat tool that allows you to do that risk assessment, and it's based on those 10 categories, and it allows you to kind of track that over time. As always, anytime you see a feature in the customer portal, if there's something you would say, man, it would be really neat if it did X, we would be helpful if we had this report or this process, let us know, because we're adding items to the customer portal all the time based on customer requests. Because again, at the end of the day, as a nonprofit, our goal here is to ensure to try to make testing as easy as we can for organizations like yourself. So that's kind of the risk section. I'm just going to kind of walk through here and call out any large items that I want to note, because there are some changes kind of all over the place. The next one in the PT plan, again, this is a free tool that anyone can use to manage your PT plans. There's two very large items that I want to call out from here. The first is once you've entered your information into your PT plan, it's super easy now to go ahead and click the order button, and you can come in here and order all of your items on your PT plan at one time. So no longer do you have to click a bunch of times in and out to try to, do this ordering process. You could, if I had 20 items in my PT plan for 2025, I could just check the ones I want and immediately order it. So that's super helpful. The second one I want to call out is this new feature around reminders and the frequency by which we do those reminders. So NAPT members can sign up and have us review and remind you about your PT plan. I know it sounds kind of silly, but oftentimes people will put information on the PT plan and they may forget to order it, or things just get busy so they kind of lose track of time. So what we'll do based on your reminder frequency are for NAPT members, we will start reaching out to you and giving you a report of here's what's on your PT plan, here's what you have or have not ordered, here's when we expect them to arrive on site, just so you've got more visibility into that process for you. So it's kind of a really, kind of handy feature for organizations. I won't go too much more in depth on the PT plans because we've spent a lot of time in the past about this. So if you're looking for more information about this, under the resources, we did a whole 30-minute webinar just on PT plans. I'd encourage you to look at that webinar because you can get some really great information there. Next, under the ILC PTs, not a lot has changed here, but there are two things I want to call out that are really important. So the first is when I am viewing my list of in-process PTs, you'll notice that there's these three dots off to the side now. And if I click on that, if the artifact is not yet shipped to your location, but you've accepted it, you now have the ability to add an additional data submittal. So what does that mean? By default, we always assume that there's one technician on site who's going to submit data, but maybe you want to have additional technicians submit more data, and we encourage that here at NAPT. More data is always better. It gives you a more holistic view of what is happening at a location. And the great thing is any NAPT member can always add 2 additional data submittals for absolutely no cost when that artifact is on site. So in this case, right, the DMM 1019, if I had 2 additional techs at this location and I wanted them to be able to also run that PT so I could not only just see how my site is doing, but I could see how each individual technician is doing within that proficiency test, I can simply come in here, say add a data submittal. It's going to ask who is this extra person that you want to add, and then you just need to let us know that you understand that, if you're not a member and you're adding it, there is a cost. But again, if you are a member, as we highlight right here, you can have a total of 3 total submittals with no additional charge. That's just part of your NAPT membership. It's a great opportunity, and we really do encourage organizations to really think about that and using that feature. So that's the first thing we want to call out. The second one is this new Suggest a Kit. And this is a really big deal for us because today we have nearly 150 PTs available, but we know that there are a lot more tests and PTs that organizations need, and we want to be able to collect that information and be able to start getting the PTs that you're looking for as the industry changes or as new kind of disciplines come up. So when I click on Suggest a Kit, what I'm going to see is I'm going to see now a list of all of the PTs that organizations have reached out to us and said, hey, it'd be awesome if we had a dew point thermodynamic discipline. And I can click on the details and I can get additional information like the range and the set points and all that kind of fun stuff we're thinking about. But ultimately, in order for a PT to work, we need to have multiple labs interested in it. It's great that one lab wants to do it, and we could obviously use an intra for that. But what we really want is we want to have that round robin effect to go from site to site to site. So what you can do now is you can look at this list and you can say, hey, I really like this dew point. Some other organization thought it was important. I'm going to add my vote to that list. And as we look at these kits, as we get more votes on particular PTs, we're going to develop them based on what organizations are looking for. And that'll help us give you the specific PTs that you're looking for inside of your organization. Now, maybe you go through this whole list and you're like, none of this is what I need. I actually need something else. So you can always come down here and click submit new idea. And maybe you need some sort of pressure gauge to, 50,000 PSI or something like that. And you can put a range, right? So we're going to do 30,000 to 50,000. And you can just give us any type of other information that would be useful, right? We need, we're looking at this is the kind of scope. There's, whatever, one lab, two labs, whatever that would be interested in it. And when you submit this idea, what's going to happen is it's going to go to our technical advisors and they're going to review it. And they're going to either get back to you and say, hey, right, that's a great idea. Let's develop it right away. Or that's really interesting. I'm curious if other organizations want that. They'll add it to this proposal list so organizations can go ahead and add their votes to it. Or maybe you've requested something, we already have a PT that meets that. It's just like a different range or a smaller subset of the range. We'll let you know what those are then too. So it's a really neat way for us to try to gather feedback from organizations to understand what is the next PT that we should be developing for organizations. The last, before I move on, I should have said this from the get-go. If you have questions along the way, feel free to throw them in the chat or use the Q&A feature. I'll go ahead and answer those questions along the way as well. So that was the ILC PT part. So next up is intra. What is new here? The biggest item you'll see is up at the top is this ability to enroll in a free pH or conductivity intra. So for anyone who's an NAPT member, we now offer the ability for you to run a PT in your organization inside of this pH and conductivity discipline free of charge as part of your membership. And this is your internal interest. So when you go through this process, what we're going to do is we're going to build all of the processes on the back end with these 8 specific measured values. And then you, within your organization, would use your samples and your artifacts or your standards to go ahead and conduct this intra. So you'd need to have a minimum of 3 individuals. More is always better. And then when your intra is done or you're done collecting the data, we'll go ahead and we'll run our analysis against it and issue you final reports for your intra inside of this pH and conductivity area. So we're really excited to offer this. We've heard a real need for this to be able to do pH and conductivity, and some of it, it just makes more sense for you to run it as an intra versus actually running some sort of like standard PT with samples and stuff like that, because every lab is very different inside of this space. So that's the new item inside of the intra. The next one, I mentioned this before, is the corrective actions. So we added this just a couple weeks ago for any NAPT member. They can now run and manage their own corrective actions directly from within the customer portal. So if I want to create a new corrective action, I can simply click the button up at the top. I can give what that corrective action is. So, had issue with standard XYZ, all right, give it a description. It was broken. I can pick severity. I can determine if it came from a customer. I can assign it to different people within my organization, and do all sorts of fun things. And then I can go ahead and click create that corrective action, and it shows up on my list that I can now manage. And other individuals within my organization can also see these or get alerted to them if the car was assigned to them. What's also really neat is from the PT itself, when you're looking at the final results of a PT, I can pick one that's actually completed. Let me grab this one. I can directly from the PT open a corrective action from that PT. So in this case, you'll notice I had 2 unsatisfactory items. So I'm going to say open a corrective action on this one. Unsats, it was bad. And we'll say it's really bad. It was done from, an audit or an internal process, and we'll create that new car, and that car has been created. And what's neat at that point in time is we've now linked that corrective action back to that specific PT. So here you'll see, right, from a naming standard, we've named it after that PT. So at a glance, I can now see that I have corrective actions based on a specific PT that I completed. So it's a really neat way to be able to track that information within your organization. The other item I want to call out real quick inside the cars is you can, obviously print these reports. And if I look at a car, it's a standard information, right? We're going to have our general info, have the details, what the root cause of it, what the plan is, and then what is our follow-up actions. So I can manage all of this within the corrective action module for my organization. The next thing I do want to call out that's also super new is inside of settings. You'll notice there's a new account profile here for admins. Gives you a couple of things. First, you do have the ability to turn off the cars. So if you're a member and you don't want to use the car access for some reason, maybe you have an internal process already, you can disable it. You can also change who your primary contact is. This is for reporting purposes. And the big one here is you can now upload your logo for your organization. And where this comes into play is if I were to go print, for example, the PT report, we'll see that the logo appears at the top. So when I export this out into my PDF, we'll see that my logo is there and everything's there. So previously we used to put the NAPT logo on the top of a lot of these reports, but at the end of the day, this isn't an NAPT report, right? This is your Proficiency or your PT plan or your car or your risk analysis, those kinds of things. So we want to make sure that we're being reflective of who is actually using this and displaying this information to the different organizations. So you can do that right underneath settings today. The last thing I want to call out that is new is for our larger organizations. So if you manage multiple labs across your organization, you can always switch at the top between those different locations, but you can also run reports and you can run manage settings across them. So for example, I could manage all the contacts, who has access to which sites. I have that ability to control that myself. But one of the new reports here is this new PT usage report. I can select that and it will, if I pick it'll always default to last year, but I can pick a time frame and it will show me across all of my locations in a singular report what is the account, what's the scheme, the status, right? When is it performed, all those kind of fun things. So just really helpful to have this all in a single visual if I'm trying to roll up all of my information across my 2, 3, 5, 20, 30, however many labs you might have, to be able to put that in a singular spot. So again, that's really helpful for those multi-lab locations. Someone just asked about the risk in the PT plan. They just wanted clarification. Do I need to be a member to use the PT plan or the risk module? The answer is no. The risk analysis and the PT plans are available to anyone. You technically don't even need to have ordered a PT from NAPT, to be dead honest. You can sign up for an account on the customer portal and go ahead and use that and have never ordered anything and still have access to both the risk and the PT plan. Obviously, we think you should be ordering PTs from us, but that's not even a requirement in this case. So that's kind of a brief rundown of kind of the big new additions that we've brought into the customer portal that we want to make sure people are aware of. And we're really excited about this risk tool. It's been there for a few weeks, and we've seen a lot of organizations already using this tool on a day-to-day basis. So we're pretty excited about that. All right, so big highlights. We mentioned the risk management tool. We talked about that ability to suggest kits for development. We really are looking to hear back from organizations to know what is the next area that you want us to spend our time and resources in so that we can manage and build PTs that are useful for your organization. And then the corrective action module we talked about. There's a few other things that I talked about that I always like, I just want to recap. First, we talked about those PT reminders, right? So member organizations can now have a regular check-in on your PT plans. That's really important. The second item, those additional submittals, you can submit, NAPT members can submit 2 additional submittals at no cost, and you can do that now yourself in the portal. You don't need to come to us and ask us to add additional technicians. You can do that manually. We have that free pH conductivity intra for our NAP members, and then we also talked about the account profile, primary contacts, logos, all those kind of fun things. So that's kind of what is new in the portal that we want to make sure people are aware of. The next piece is what's next. What are the next items that we're looking at? And it's really in 3 specific areas. The first is around schedule notifications. So today, when a PT is about to arrive at your location, in the customer portal, we have a tentative start date, and we also will send you an email a few weeks before arrival. But a lot of organizations have asked for a tad bit more lead time on that. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a scheduled notification that will go out monthly to the primary contact that will show a list of all of the PTs that are registered for that organization and the tentative start date for all of them. Obviously, that start date could change, right? We're beholden to the previous participant sending it on a timely manner, or there's no damage to the PT, but it's our best guess of when we're going to do that. So we're going to send that automatically to organizations so that you have more visibility when the PTs are arriving, which we think will be really helpful. You will be able to turn that off if you don't want that email for some reason, but we do think it'll be a really important tool. And you'll be able to sign up other people other than just your primary contact. You could have additional lab individuals receive that as well. So you'll have control of that. The second one is the ability to schedule reports. So one of the reports I didn't even talk about is this tracking and results. This is a report that's available to our NAPT members, which is a really nice kind of look where it shows you, hey, these are all the ones that are upcoming along with tentative start dates. So that kind of that schedule piece. But the second half is, what did we complete during this time period? So I'm looking for 1 year ago. What are all the PTs that I completed and how did we do on all of them, right? So I can at a glance see, hey, we got 11 out of 12 here, 0 out of 1 there, right? So I can very quickly see that kind of view. It's a great report for our members, but what we've heard a lot of is, it's great that it's there, but can you make it just magically appear in my inbox like on the 1st of every month, for example? So one of the big things we're going to do is these type of reports, we're going to work on creating a way for you to schedule those reports so that you can pick how often you want to see them and what the default time frame is. Last 6 months, last 12 months, last 24 months, whatever makes sense for your organization, and we'll deliver those emails to you automatically with the report. So it's a really great way to push the information out versus what we'd call a pull where you have to log in and grab it. And the last one is that tracking and results report across all organizations. So I showed you the kind of the usage report that showed you all of the PTs, but it didn't tell you the results, right? It just told me they're completed. The final report was issued this day. So we're going to take that same report and take it a step further so that you can see all of the PT results across the entire organization in a single report. That way you don't have to go run the same report 5 or 6 or 10 times based on the number of organizations or the multiple locations you might have. So those are the three big areas that we're going to spend some time in. Another question that came in, do I have to use the AI summary on that risk tool? Absolutely not. There's no requirement for you to actually click the button to do the AI. So you can type your own summary from the get-go. We just added that as a way to quickly kind of build a set of, summary for you at the end of the day. So with that said, if there's any other questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. This is supposed to go to 12:30. It's 12:29, so kind of nailed the timing on that one. As always, this will be published online under resources on our website, so you'll have access to the full recording. And if you have any questions about anything you saw in this presentation, you can always reach out to us at napt@proficiency.org. We're more than happy to answer those questions. And lastly, if you've got a suggestion, if you have a report that you would really love to see, it would be great if we had this information, it was in this type of chart or whatever the case might be. Let us know, send us examples of what you want for reports, because if you want that report, it's highly likely someone else wants that report, and we would love to put that into the portal for everyone. So with that said, I want to thank everyone for taking 30 minutes out of your day to learn about all the new things that are happening in the customer portal and what's coming up soon as well. Thanks for joining, everyone. Have a great day.